Even all, welcome back to The View for the matchday review of Leeds United 3, Luton Town 0. Possibly the most impressive performance Leeds United put in this season from bell to bell, outside of a little bit of a scare towards the back end of a game, which you would expect in the kind of game and the way that it went. Joined by Ben Lucky Leeds to have a look back at the game and talk about it and dial in on a few small things. But Lucky, first things first, how are you and your overall thoughts on the game yesterday?
Yeah, I'm not bad, mate. Not bad. It's good to have 3 games a week, innit? It's a bit hectic, but you know what I mean? You're always thinking about, I get to watch Leeds in a few days. It's great. But when you've got 2 weeks off every, 2 or 3 weeks, it's like, something to look forward to. So I'm good with football, mate. It's good at the moment. And I agree with you. I think a lot of guys and girls in the comments as well agree. It was a great performance, wasn't it? And we'll dive into it. But lovely. Some lovely stuff in that game that I really enjoyed. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, there was some very nice patterns of play that popped up as well during the game, specifically in the first half, which was really nice. Some of the football Leeds played was really enjoyable to watch. And I want to talk about that a bit tonight. We'll get the overall opinion of the game from Lucky, and I'll give mine as well. But then I want to kind of dial in a little bit on what impressive versus boring actually looks like and the difference between the two. Because just because Leeds keep a clean sheet and have 80% possession, that doesn't mean the game is boring. Just because we said it was boring a couple of weeks ago doesn't mean that applies to every single game that therefore comes after it. Same applies to other comments around stuff that's specifically in a certain time and a certain moment. This was a very different performance from Leeds United versus QPR. Leeds were much higher up the pitch. The shape was higher. The possession was progressive. It wasn't just left to right and back to the centre backs. We went back to Meslier a lot less than we did against QPR and against Plymouth. And we just generally, there was a much higher tempo to the game for me, Lockie, specifically in that first half. The first half was an excellent first half to watch Leeds put 45 minutes like that together. And probably the closest Leeds have gone to putting a full 90-minute performance together as well so far this year.
Absolutely, yeah. That first half, I messaged you, didn't I, Joe, halfway through it, going, this is pretty good, this. We're getting what you've been asking for. Yeah. Because we've always got that base there of potential of, we look all right, there's just a little bit missing. But I think in that first half, the pace in which we moved the ball and kind of the understanding of every player in that was just really good. You know, like their manager said after, we couldn't get near him. There's no bigger compliment to your team than when another opposite manager says, we couldn't get near him. You know, we've all been in games where we've been absolutely battered and then we've gone, couldn't get near him, literally couldn't get near him. That's because you've just been outthought, outmoved, you know, and that's what we did. The decision-making from every player was, if we can go forward, we will go forward. But then when we went forward, there was options. It wasn't like, we'll force it. There was 2 or 3 options every time. I thought every player played their part in that. And overall, when every player's doing that, when every player's on the same wavelength and wanting to play forward, but get forward with the ball and not just rely on 1v1s, that's when you see a team like us with the talent we've got absolutely destroy teams. And look, yeah, when we do that, we are unstoppable and most teams probably can't get near us. And it all came together in that, especially in the first half. Second half's a little different. Still professional and very good at times, still went forward. They were obviously going to come into it a little bit at times, like they're too good of a team in terms of where they've been and what they've got to not do that. But I thought for the most part, apart from 1 or 2 moments, we dealt with it. And it was like we always had that forward intensity, Joe, I think it's the word. And that's what I just loved about it. The speed of pass as well was excellent. The movement of it, a lot of 1 touch, 2 touch, no hesitation that we usually get. Yeah, brilliant, mate. I loved it.
I think it's important. Like I talk about tempo an awful lot, specifically with this team. I don't think I've mentioned tempo as much as I have under this side over the last 18 months. But it's a hugely important part of the game. And that's what gives possibly the entertainment factor to it as well. I mean, possession's great and having huge amount of passes is great. But when they're moved just a little bit quicker, when there's an understanding of where the next ball needs to go as you're receiving it, and you can do that quickly, you really get a sense of how much talent there is in this Leeds team when they've got a bit of space to play in. And when you move that ball quickly and get it into wide areas and get it into space, all of a sudden Leeds look vicious on the attack nearly every single time, because your likes of Nanto and Solomon and James and Ramazani get to run at people and get to actually get into, third, fourth gear before they get to the player. So it's a huge thing. And it might look on paper like there was similarities between this and QPR, but Leeds were pedestrian was the term that was used. It was 3 and 4 touches before the ball was passed, and inevitably it was passed backwards. And Yeah, the numbers look the same, but the progressive passes from Leeds yesterday was way higher. Every time they got the ball, they take 2 or 3 yards forward and try and play the ball forward into a wide area. Tanaka at one point in the first half had occupied an out-and-out quarterback role. He was just camped in the first half between the centre-backs going, give it to me, I'll start this off and we'll get going here. And it worked really well. And it was maybe this team needed momentum. Maybe it was a case that we needed these kind of games. But we had the block after the last international break that we thought we could go on a run here, and we didn't. Already now we've started to move. We've got 3 wins in our last 3 games. We look very impressive. The substitutions are having an impact, albeit you can still argue about the timing of them, but they are still having an impact. And until they stop having an impact, you can't really argue too much. But from top to bottom for me, like I thought it was an absolutely excellent game from Leeds. 76% possession. And the big stat that stood out to me was 15 shots from inside Luton Town's box, 20 shots in total, 5 outside. 15 from inside of it. And outside of 2 of those, they all hit the target. And that's the conversion rate that Leeds are looking for. And you could argue, Lockie, had decision-making been maybe a little bit less selfish or a little bit clearer in the final second half, we could have made that 4 or 5 or even 6.
Yeah, it's interesting on the conversion rate there. I don't know the numbers behind it, but just from watching the game, I know the other game was 4-3, but we were clinical in that one. You know, we were not clinical at the other end, but we were clinical in front of goal. And even in this one, we could have been more, definitely. But we did take a lot of our chances, to be fair. I think we looked... Any kind of shot on target was a decent strike for the most part. You know, we looked a little more composed. And it's interesting just on the passing and like you said, to really break it down and make it really simple. If you're a possession-based team and you're doing, say, 10 passes in a move, right, and them 10 passes take a minute to do, right? Or if, you know, compared to another team that does 10 passes in the same move, it takes 40 seconds. Throughout that move from back to front, the other team have got 20 more seconds to get into shape. Do you know what I mean? Each pass is worth 2 or 3 seconds if you hesitate. That's how, and yesterday, was no hesitation, like against QPI. It was, I've got it, it's going there, it's going there, it's going there straight away. We went long when we had to. Tanaka, Rothwell both did long balls, which were worked in behind. We ran the channels really well. Everyone was just on the same wavelength. And this is what the frustration thing about this team is. We know they can do it. We've seen it in glimpses so much. To see it for basically a full 45 minutes, and even in the second half for the most part, is something that makes you confident. You look at that and go, right. And that's why a lot of the guys who were not keen on Farke are now going, that's what we need to do. That's what we expect. And the players need to take responsibility as well for that, as well as the manager, because they've shown that they are capable of doing that, you know? And this is the point. Like the manager can tell them what to do, of course. And if he's telling them to slow it down too much, maybe he's in the wrong. But if the players are choosing to do that themselves, they're in the wrong, because look what happens when you play quick. And I don't think we did it in a way that made us exposed either. I don't think we did it where we pushed so many forward that we were exposed. I think defensively as well, we got into shape really well, which is something good about this team. So, yeah, we've just got to keep doing this now. And we've got to keep setting this standard, because this is what's required. It is a high standard. We have to admit that. We expect a lot every game. But they've shown they're capable of it. And that's on them. So that's what we need to see more, I think. Just more of this consistency.
Yeah, and I think when they get into those positions, the longer the season goes in, where there's like, you look at Jaden Bogle's opportunity to pull it back for Joseph or Vober to tap in, and there's a goal there, and you look at Aaronson the first half where maybe he should shoot and he doesn't, and then looks for the extra pass, and maybe there's a bit of a confidence issue there with him. But they're getting into really good positions. They're creating continuous movements forward, which is hasn't been there all season. It's been there in patches this year. And we've talked about the first 10 minutes of Watford and probably the first half against Plymouth, and talked about how this team has levels and gears to it. And I think yesterday we saw quite a lot of them as well. And I do want to touch briefly, before I do want to talk about Joe Rothwell, and then we'll talk about Joe Rothwell in a sec, but I do want to touch briefly on Dan James' impact coming off the bench again, and Willie Gnonto as well. And Farke's decision to rotate them around. Now he brings Gnonto off the bench against Swansea and he scores. And he brings Dan James off the bench last night and he scores. So even the rotating of the wingers, and that shows the quality of those wingers, but being able to swap a player out like that and then still have an impact of the other player coming back into it, it's a really positive thing for him to have. He can look around that bench and go, yeah, we've got impact in this bench. And I want to get your thoughts on that as well, just the impact off the bench this season. I think we scored 8 goals from substitutions this season, which for all the criticism of Farke's timing, that's pretty impressive from a team.
I believe a few weeks ago, I believe it was the most. I don't know whether we're still up there. I'm assuming we will be. But yeah, each week we keep bringing a player on and they seem to score or get an assist. Joe Piroe's done it a lot this season. Dan James, as you said, did it. Nonto does it. Ramazani will probably do it in the next few weeks when he comes off the bench. And it's such an important tool to have players when games are fairly tight who can just come on and kill a game off or get that crucial goal. I liken it to set pieces. It's a little tool that you need to just to add a few more points at the end of the season. I look at Ipswich last year. The amount of times they'd bring players on. Sarmiento, for example, would just come on, just get a goal, just get one. Not a huge impact on the entire season, but would have moments in the season where it got them distance between 1 point and 3 point, or no points on 1 point. And this is the point of substitutions, and this is what they can do, and they're doing that, and that's again, people can criticize the timing of it, but they're coming on and getting the goal. They're making an impact for the most part, and it's really impressive. Yeah.
There's been a couple of people just mentioning Willie Gnonto's impact in the comments, and I've seen a lot of people talking again about Joel Piroe over the last couple of days. And I wanted to just share something with everybody that's possibly not always visible to the eye when you're watching a performance. And we're talking about impact over anything else here. And it's this that's come out. If you look at Leeds' goals and assists combination this season, so who has the most G&A over the course of the year so far? Joel Piroe has 9 goals and assists combined for Leeds United this year. And Willie Gnonto in second on 8, and Brendan Aaronson in third with 5. And though Brendan might not be on fire right now or cooking on all the 4 cylinders, but those 5 goal involvements that he had, especially the couple of goals that he got, were very important to Leeds at certain moments this year and got us points in games. And Joel Piroe and Willie Gnonto are chipping away with impact, although it might not always appear on the naked eye like they're massively involved. But when you look at that, they've had a huge impact already. Joel Piroe's averaging a goal or an assist every other game, which is a lot of impact for any player to have in the game.
Yes, ridiculous, isn't it? I feel like we have this conversation every week about Joel Piroe. The guy scores goals, and how many years has any team really in football been crying out for a goal scorer? Every team needs one. When you've got one, don't be too harsh on him. No, you can point out his flaws, but he scores goals for fun. His goals per game ratio is an absolute joke, and he does it. And he does it most games. It's down to us as a team, if we're starting him, to get him in those positions. Because he's not the type of player that's going to get himself in them positions. We know that. He's not going to take a few guys on and get in front of goal and finish it. He's not that type of guy.
Yeah.
Get him the ball in those positions, and he'll at least hit it on target. That's what I love about Piroe. His shots are always on target. A lot of our players are quite wasteful in how we shoot. Joe Piroe's shots are always on target, and that's what you get learned at. You get taught as a young kid. Make sure it's on target. Give the keeper something to do. Yeah. And Joe Piroe does that. And he's come on in, like even the goal, he kicked it straight at the goalkeeper, but he hit it hard at him. Do you know what I mean? He got it on target. So what do you do with Joe Piroe? You play him because he's scoring goals. And luckily for him, not luckily for him, that's luckily for us, you can look at the team and say, yeah, maybe there's some people that suit the system better, agree. But when you've got players like Gnonto, Aaronson, Ramazani, James, Solomon around him doing all the other bits, you kind of don't need that ideal Farke striker, that really quick one that can run in behind as well as hold it up, because you've got a guy that is quite literally putting up the most important stat from his perspective, which is scoring goals. And the guys around him are doing everything for him in a sense, and that's absolutely fine. I actually thought, in terms of how he played, I thought it was good. I know people online were saying it was bad. I didn't see that. I think as a striker, it's difficult because you're always probably going to be the quietest player on the pitch because it's the hardest to get to you.
Yeah.
But actually, apart from maybe 1 or 2 times where his touch was like a trampoline, I thought he was very effective. I thought his movement was minimal, but quick and sharp and decisive. And he was actually key in a lot of build-up, I think. And he ran the channels once or twice as well. I like Piroe because it just gets on with it as well. He takes a lot of criticism, but he just seems to get on with it and just scores goals. And Joe, like if you're a coach in a team and you haven't got a goal scorer, there's so many ways you've got to try and play to help your team. But if you've got one, right, let's just somehow get it to him in the box. That's all we need to focus on. Get it to him and we'll score. Whereas the other way around, it's more, how do we change the entire system to make our 10 more effective or our wingers? But in this team, get it to him in the box and he'll guarantee you a goal if you do.
Yeah. And even the criticism Mateo Joseph got between the two of them this year, they've got 14 goals and assist involvements already inside 17 games. So again, they're chipping in with what needs to be as a striking partnership, or at least as a pairing up front. But the midfield has been the talk of the town for probably the last 2 weeks. And we spent so much time talking about Tanaka and how good he is. And I know if I gave you another 20 minutes, you could still wax lyrical more about what he did. Outpassed yesterday by Pascal Stroke, was the only player to outpass him, but still 114 passes with a 91% passing accuracy is phenomenal. And he got a couple of shots on target as well. So he's moving further up the pitch. But Joe Rothwell, I want to talk about. I thought he was excellent last night, but I thought he was excellent against Swansea as well. And I think he's been the underestimated or underrated midfielder of the season so far. I think what he gives Leeds in terms of tempo and breaking into space is different to what Leeds had last year. And we don't have it this year either. Maybe if Ampadu comes back into midfield, Tanaka can do that role. But I feel like everyone's very quick to want to take Joe Rothwell out of the mix. And I'm not sure that's a good idea, because I think he's been really, really impressive for Leeds.
Yeah.
And Neil Redfern described him today, him and Tanaka, as elite level midfield combination based on what they've done this season, and that they both complement each other quite well. And it is a very good partnership. But I want to get your thoughts on just Joe Rothwell so far this season and his impact on the games that he's had so far. Lucky, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, Rothwell's the perfect example of don't listen to what fans of other clubs say about the player and judge him by what you see. Because if you ask Bournemouth fans, they might tell you a certain thing. Yeah, he's not great. He's not done up for us. Southampton fans, I know a lot of them, he scored some good goals, but he didn't really play for them. They didn't like it, what he did, because he played in the wrong role. Trust what you see. Don't make it an out-and-out judgment on a player until you've seen him. Do your research. Watch some things about him. He's a very capable player at this level. I believe he was in the team of the year when it was at Blackburn a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. He's a very good player, and he's playing in a role now where he's suited. At Southampton, he played a lot deeper, and it didn't suit him. He's not that defensive player. He isn't. Although he can get stuck in and do it, he's not that. He doesn't love doing that. He likes going forward with it. And he's the balance in this team, is Joe Rothwell. He's the key balance. And I think we've struggled with balance a lot in terms of midfield. I think we've had very good players there who are very good at certain things. Gruev, Ampadu, for example, who try to do another role. But when you've got a player like Rothwell who's experienced and done this job for Blackburn and was one of their best players that season, that's what you need. A guy who's just perfect at doing this role. And this is what I mean. He's underappreciated. And I think that's because he's on loan, Joe, to be fair. I think there's probably thought if we go up that he's not going to be here next season. You know what I mean? So you kind of don't want to get that connection with him, if that makes sense. But the guy's come in. He's not listening to the critics. He knows how good he is. He's performed his game, and he's just so key. We talk about Tanaka every week because he's unbelievable, but Joe Rothwell he balances this team out perfectly. That link up between defense and attack and the tempo between defense and attack, he dictates it so much. I just love when he gets the ball. He gets the ball and he goes, "I'm just going to go forward with it." And people are going to make a run. People are going to move because I'll find them. Whereas I'm not criticising them here. They're different players. Where if Gruev or Ampadu got it, there might have been that idea in players' minds that they're probably not going to find me up here. So I won't really make that decisive run. If Rothwell's got it, he's going to find you. So, honestly, mate, praise for Rothwell. He deserves more. He's not the only one. There's a few players that do. Dan James is one example that gets...
Dan James is...
Drop James. Why? Why are we dropping James?
Why?
You know what I mean? But yeah,
first two players that everyone mentions, which is a pity. I do also want to talk. There's a couple of. I've started some questions. If any of you've asked a question that's a bit of more of a lengthy answer, or doesn't fit in with the current conversation, I've saved, so we will cover them in a couple of minutes. But the Brendan Aaronson conversation is a strange one for me, because if you listen to Daniel Farke talk after the game, people are saying he's the weakest link in the team. I think Ibapa said it here, but not alone. Graham's saying my bone of contention is Aaronson still losing the ball, running around an awful lot. I'd always be careful accusing someone of running around an awful lot, because it's a very non-tactical view of a footballer, and it's probably not accurate either. Daniel Farke spoke yesterday after the game about not only the running numbers that Aaronson does, but what he does in the press as well. And if you listened, anyone who watched it on Sky TV yesterday and were listening to the commentary, it was said at one part during the commentary that Leeds press is feral nearly. It's like wild pack just hunting after players. And you might think that Brendan's just running around, but he's cutting off angles, because somebody else has asked the question about fullback, this one here. if you're a fullback, what's your first lesson to do with a winger? Is it to force him to go where he doesn't want to go or onto his weaker foot? And it's always onto his weaker foot. But if you look at what Brendan Aaronson does, the runs that he makes will blindside a player and block off part of the pitch and send the player in a different direction. Usually the direction Leeds will want. If you see players pressing without tackling on one side of a player, they're trying to push him over one area where they've probably worked on a defensive setup to get the ball into that and then swamp it. And usually for Leeds, it's halfway line left-hand side of the park seems to be where Leeds like to pick up the ball in that kind of a swarmy move. So Aaronson's important to that. He might not have done an awful lot this year. He might be on the eye, not doing a huge amount. Daniel Farke has picked him consistently in every single game, and he doesn't pick players who aren't playing well or performing well. So for me, I think there's probably more to his game than we can just see with the eye. I'm not criticizing anybody's opinion. Opinion is opinion, but I just think that he's probably doing a little bit more than people see. He's not a Georgie Ruder and he's not a creative number 10. There's no question about that. That's not his game. Personally, I would like to see him on the right-hand side of the pitch a little bit more because I think he's possibly better as an attacking option now over there and giving on to a crack at the 10. But he's clearly doing enough, Lockie, for Farke right now. And I haven't watched him in any game and went, I'm disappointed. And if that's a weak link and you're top of the league and you're 2 points clear of third, I mean, that's not a bad weak link to have.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I think it's very fair to say he does give the ball away too much. It's very fair to say he does hesitate in decision making at times, and he often does make the wrong decision. Not denying that. He does. He needs to improve that. And that's probably something he frustrates himself and the manager. But you got to take it back to when we brought Brendan Aaronson in, and the main reason he was brought in because he was the best runner in Europe. And what I mean by that is he's not just the biggest numbers, the most pressures, the most high ball recoveries, all the stuff you need for a team that's pressing, he was the best at in Europe.
Yeah.
I remember we were linked with him when Bielsa was here, and he came obviously the thing after, but we were linked to him then. And that's the key part of it. That's what he was brought in to do. And that's what Daniel Farke keeps mentioning in his presses, that he does all that, but he does it properly, does it with his brain as well. He doesn't just run around. He wins the ball back. There's result in it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, he's not just running for the sake of it. There's results. Yeah. You can see from how many times he wins the ball high up. They don't play near him. They go around him because you just know even if you're bigger and stronger than him, he'll be there. He'll buzz around you. You're not getting anywhere near him. And I guarantee every player against him will hate playing against him because even if you knock him down, he gets back up and he keeps going. And that's what he was brought in Leeds to do. And that's why he's been used. Managers absolutely love a player like Brendan Aaronson who will run their backside off effectively and get results from running, high turnovers, all this, high pressures. He gets there with it. Now, you've got to remember as well, and I also agree, I think Aaronson is probably the biggest project in this team, the one that's probably furthest away from being the player he can, if that makes sense. He's had 2 bad years of football, I think it's fair to say, with very little. Start of the Premier League season, obviously, had a good first 4 or 5 weeks, really dropped off, was overused and battered by everyone. No one liked him, right? Went to Germany, had 1 or 2 periods where he was all right for a few weeks. After that, criticised by all the fans, battered again. So he's probably lost a lot of his... shout out to... He's probably lost a lot of his identity as a player and that real confidence of what he can do. But one thing he's always got is that work rate, is that smart movement, those pressures, those high aggressive movements. And he's still doing that. And that's what Farke loves, because Farke knows his talent in there. But he also knows in order to get that
right
consistency
there
out of him. Yeah, he does do that. For probably all in Rothwell at times as well. Yeah. He knows he's got that in Aaronson. So he's willing to be patient enough to find the consistency in the final third, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's another good point there from Steve. And it was also said by Lord Shigart as well that last season Ruther lost the ball on average 18 times per game, where Aaronson only losing it 13 times per game. And it's that kind of a position where you, if you're not losing the ball, you probably should be criticizing that area as well, because it means you're probably not trying to take people on, and you're the number 10 and you should be trying to take people on and find space. So, and it's a very congested part of the park as well. Like when he's getting the ball on the edge of the 18-yard line, you've got a 6, you've got 4 defenders, you've got other midfielders coming in, and you've got all the Leeds players trying to get into that space as well. And it can be a bit easy. I'm not saying it's beyond criticism. I've criticized Brendan Aaronson to the point where I've been told I have an anti-American agenda. So I'm not trying to defend the guy blindly here either, but I think he's clearly doing enough on paper to be the number 10 in the top side in the division right now. And I think that should go without saying. And I think that's a really good point that was made by Smudge about this. Aaronson covers the running that you don't get from Piroe. So maybe you probably don't need him and Joseph together and you could play somebody else in there. But I think that's a really, really good point that he helps to cover the parts of the game that maybe other players are lacking in that area. And I like that about him. And again, similar things I used to say about Daniel James. He does a lot of unselfish work that you don't get credit for, and he'd run himself into the ground for the betterment of the team. And so many people in the chat tonight have said team performance, team win, team performance. And that's what it was. And I think Brendan Aaronson as part of a team is a very vital, not necessarily vital, but a very important player to have in that because of the work rate that he will do for his team. That does help Leeds win the ball back. Maybe not directly from him, but he can push players into positions where other players can win the ball back from. Tanak is very good just stepping in and winning them as well. So it kind of works. But yeah.
I was one of the laziest players in the team. Throughout my, I was one of the fittest. I used to run marathons at school, honestly, for my counting and everything. But when it came to football, I just liked to run on the ball. That was it. Off the ball, I just walk. I was terrible. Honestly, I was a nightmare. So I always appreciated when I was on a wing, I had a fullback that did absolutely everything for me. I loved it. And it's probably similar for him. Joe Piroe is very good at cutting the line. So it'll split the pitch into half. He'll cut the centre back from the fullback to make him go one way. But then the press is initiated by Aaronson. He does that bit really, really well. And when he goes, Nonto goes, Solomon goes, Dan James goes, that's 4 players you don't want pressing you. Yeah. It's so underappreciated, underrated, and always will be. Look, again, I don't think either of us are denying Jay needs to improve in the final third. His decision making needs to get better.
Yeah.
He'll know that. The manager will know that. But right now, the fundamentals of his game for what the player he is right now, he's doing perfectly for me. And that is
and I think
the pressures.
Which is important to this team. They need that. Like you need those numbers. You need those. This is a possession-based team. You need players that will run as well to create space for ball to be played into. And again, I said before, like playing number 9 on your own, sometimes your runs are not for you. Sometimes your run is to create space for somebody else. If you're being marked tightly, you're being marked. And Nonto was another question about Willie Nonto, and he's talked about being marked by 2 players in every game. So he has to sacrifice his game then to create space for others. So it becomes, okay, if you're going to mark me, then I'm going to bring you to a part of the pitch you don't want to be in. And I'm going to isolate you there, and that will create space for somebody else to win. Because if I'm being marked out of the game, the least impact I can have is dragging 2 other players out of the game with me and creating space for somebody else. So it gets missed, it goes without being seen, but it's a big important thing to call out.
And then who's going to be willing to run into that space? And that's where you look at Aaronson. That's where you look at players like him and Dan James. Every single time they're willing to do it, and that's what I love about them.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Swansea game. Look at the goal that Willie Nonto got. Dan James, look how far infield he runs to make sure he gets involved in that counter-attack. Like he comes all tears inside to get into that, and then he gets it. It's a lovely little pass into Nonto. But if he doesn't make that run, if he says, well, I'm the right winger, I'm staying on the right wing, that goal doesn't happen. And it's you're not always rewarded for those things. But I think I do think it's an important thing to call out. Lockie, before we wrap up, I wanted to talk about a comment Daniel Farke made today in the press conference regarding January. I don't know if you saw it.
I did.
Did you get the impression we're not going to do anything in January?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Because I did, yeah. I was like, that's that then.
I've got a few video plans, so I need him to hype the window up a bit more, to be honest, so people are interested. He does this, though. I don't know. I feel like he might have got told off at the end of last window when he was getting a bit, saying we need this and that profile.
He was, though.
Yeah, he was. So maybe they've just told him, look, put it this way, right? What we'll say is, I don't think we'll bring many in, if any. I think we'll bring 1. And I think that might be a 10. A different option to Aaronson, a different profile. Because we don't have a different profile in there. We have 4 wingers that are relatively similar. Dan James is very different, obviously. So that's all right. 4 backs, we've got 2 in each, fairly covered there. Centre backs, Voba's playing now. He looked decent. So we're all right there. Midfield.
Voba was okay last night.
Yeah, he was fine. Yeah, he looked good. Getting back into it, innit? Midfield, stacked when everyone's fit. Still stacked now without him, to be honest, with Gulivogi back. Striker, we've got 3 there. Farke won't bring a 4th in unless one goes. It's the 10 position where there's not really a clear profile, a different profile to Aaronson that might be able to come on and impact a game from that area. So I do think we'll do that, even though Farke said it's going to be very quiet. I think we might bring one in, to be honest with you.
I'd like a sneaky move for Carvalho after what happened this week with his dad. I said it in the news, I'll say it again. It's never advisable for parents to go onto online communities or internet and start talking about their children when they're playing for football clubs. It doesn't end well. It never has ended well. It never will end well. Telling his son to leave Brentford in response to their Instagram post and then deleted it after, but it was captured. And a strange comment, but it could leave the door open for a player that Daniel Farke has tried to sign twice for Leeds. Maybe.
Yeah. I think he's done with Championship, to be honest, mate. He's done his 2 stints now. I can't remember if he's done 1 or 2 stints, but look, it's a quality player, but I've just got a feeling he took a big move to Brentford, won it in the summer. He plays a bit as well. I think he's played 11 times this season. Not a lot of minutes, but I feel if it was a loan, it'd be lower end Premier League. You speak in Europe switchers and Leicester's. Yeah, I don't think we're in that race. I'm happy to be wrong, but I don't think so, to be fair.
I'd like us not to. Now, last year in January, I thought we did enough bringing in Connor Roberts, but I know that we didn't in the end, that we left ourselves short. And when the March international break came around, we had injuries and problems, and that caused us issues where our other promotion rivals had strengthened. Again, I say the same thing about Leeds. I've learned from that, and I want Leeds to learn from their mistakes of the past, and don't leave yourself too short. Although this year I feel we've probably got enough strength and depth, but if Farke didn't get a number 10 in summer that he wanted, maybe he still wants that number 10 now. And I agree with you as well. If you want to have that opportunity, just also to give Brendan a rest from time to time, because he's done a huge amount of travel and a huge amount of games being played. And it would be nice to rest him for a little bit. I think he's played a huge amount of minutes. So that would be nice. But I would like to see maybe another bit of cover at the centre-back position. And if I was being really cheeky, I'd like a number 9 as well, a different profile of number 9, maybe for different types of games, especially towards the end of a game as well. So, but yeah, it did very much seem to me like he wasn't planning on doing much in January.
Yeah. The problem is, though, Joe, for me, I understand what you're saying. We've got a good squad. Everyone's close. We don't want to ruin it. But I don't know. I look at last year, Southampton brought in Brooks and Rothwell, who all impacted and won games for them. Ipswich brought in El Habdi and Kiefer Moore, who scored how many goals in that second half of that season. Got them over the line. Leicester were 17 points clear. They didn't really need to. We brought in Connor Roberts, who I like. Didn't play that much. Didn't really, apart from the Leicester game where he scored a brilliant goal, didn't really play to a level where he impacted the game. And I thought we maybe should have, in hindsight, like I said, maybe got 1 or 2 in. I don't want us to be in a position where we, at the end of January, Burnley have signed 2 or 3 decent attackers,
And we haven't.
Sheffield United have brought in 2 or 3 more. And I'm going, that's right. Our squad is great. But what happens if we get an injury in February or March? 2 or 3 injuries. I know Farke said, look, if we've got injuries, we'll see. But injuries can still happen after the transfer window. I just want to...
And that's reactive as well.
Yeah, exactly. Why not risk it? We're so close to the Premier League. Just get a loan in that can do a job, that can come in if needed. Do you know what I mean? Just be sensible. Get a decent loan player from the Premier League, maybe. Do you know what I mean? Just someone that's not he's not going to ruin the harmony of the dressing room.
Knows the brief.
Just back yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not asking for £20 million players. I'm not asking for £10 million players. Just a decent loan from the Premier League, mate, to be honest. Just to back us in that position if we need someone.
Yeah. The Piroe situation could be an interesting one. Again, there's talk today possibly about it. Well, I say possibly. Paul Robinson reckons he'll go in January.
Right.
I don't.
Oh, really?
Paul Robinson appears to have the worst insider links in Leeds of anybody, considering a man who's actually got connections with Leeds. Yeah. There's that as well. Also, this has been floating around. We talked about it briefly, but the Evan Ferguson, there was no story on Evan Ferguson coming to Leeds, or Leeds even being linked with a move for Evan Ferguson. What happened was Carlton Palmer said Leeds should go in for Evan Ferguson, and then it became Leeds are interested in Evan Ferguson, and the usual non-credible sites picked it up as Leeds are trying to sign Evan Ferguson. They're not. And there's no links there's no credible links from Leeds to Evan Ferguson. Manager said he's not going anywhere. I would have been shocked if he said he was. And if he was going to go anywhere, he wasn't going to go outside the Premier League. There's no way Evan Ferguson's taking a step down at this point in his career. So, yeah, no. Harrison's an interesting one because it came up again today, and I can't keep covering the same repetitive story. It's not going well. And there's a possibility that he could come back on loan. And the James McAtee situation, apparently 27 million will be the number if you want him. That's a big.
We've got to,
stretch.
It's we've got to be realistic. I know it's tough. These are good players, but these are Premier League players. They might not be playing a lot for their clubs, but their clubs are Brighton and Man City. You know what I mean? McAtee is an excellent footballer who obviously was at Sheffield United in the Premier League last year and had a decent season for the first half of it, at least. He's a Premier League player and he's got a huge future. Look, if we go up, we're willing to pay a bit of money for him. Then we're looking at him. But he is not coming to the Championship, I'm afraid. Look, I could be wrong. Like I said, we might just do something crazy, but I highly, highly doubt it.
I could see a McAteer or a Evan Ferguson in a Leeds United shirt on loan if we're in the Premier League, but not until then. So just before we wrap up real quick, just some of the start comments from earlier on, just from Pierre, was at the Luton game a development of a real team, or was it per opposition? I don't think Luton brought anything to the table, and I'm not sure what their revamp or their reset was supposed to look like. But if that's what their reset looks, I think they're in big trouble. They didn't lay a glove on Leeds. Shane saying this is how a team play together, creating goals and subs coming off the bench. Well, exactly. Good attitude. It's a really good point. That was the conversation with the fullbacks. I would always say, put him on his weak foot. Yeah. If he's a left footer who wants to come in all the time, send him down the line. And if he's a right footer who wants to go outside all the time, send him inside. But do it early. Yeah. Don't wait until they get to the 18-yard line to do that. Do it much earlier.
If he's got to the 18-yard line, you've done wrong. You need to smash him before that, if that's the case.
You do, yeah. You get that far and you're making a decision, it's too late. Yeah. Whether or not it's been shut down, he's talked about this. This is the doubling up, and he's kind of sacrificing himself then to make space for other players. And he's commented on that himself. Do you think Bamford will go in January? I don't, unless he wants to go, and that seems to be the deal here. He can go if he wants to. If not, he'll be here until the summer, and then he'll probably go in the summer. But I don't. What do you think, Lockie? Will he head off in January and go and play some football? He can't be happy with six appearances off the bench this year.
No. He's not even getting off now recently, is he? Now everyone's fit. He's not getting off the bench. So he's clearly not part of the immediate gameplay plan. So maybe, if he wants to play football, maybe he's just at the part of his career now where he's just happy with what he's doing. He's a bit of a mentor role for the younger players, potentially. Like Gulavog is doing as well, Cooper last year. Yeah. So maybe, I don't know. Be a good thing to ask him on his podcast. What do you want to do? Do you want to play, or are you in the mentor side?
Or sit down.
Yeah. I can't lie to you. I'd be happy with his role, just chilling. Like Alex Carnes, you know what I mean? Just turning up.
I think there's a point in your career. I have left clubs from being the second choice striker, sitting on the bench for a couple of games, gone, not doing this. I'm here to play football. I'm not here to sit on the bench. I don't care what the club is or what the money is. I want to play football. So,
Jay, I was that guy, Jay. Honestly, it would be 5-0 up. I'd get took off in the 8th minute. I'd be fuming.
Oh, I was the same. I hate coming off.
Hated it.
I hate coming off.
Yeah.
I hurt myself really badly in a preseason friendly after having a really good year for would be my old team, Newtown Rangers. We played a preseason friendly, and I went into a 50-50 in the first half with a guy. And when you just get your ankle buzzed, where it's kind of feels like it's vibrating and it's numb and you can't put your weight on it. And you're kind of thinking, this will go away. Or just give me a few minutes. And I'm sitting on the ground. And the manager's like, Jer, off you come. And I lost the plot. I'm injured. And I gave him such a hard time about it as well. And then I sat on the sideline and sulked for, I'd say, until the last 5 minutes. He goes, do you want to go back on? I was like, yeah, of course I do. And out of nothing other than pure stubbornness, I went back on the pitch and hobbled around. I could put no weight on my ankle. I could barely drive home, but I wasn't going to let him see that. That's how much I wanted to play. Yeah. I was out for 4 weeks with ankle ligament damage after it as well. So it didn't work out well at all. But same things. Like, I would rather hurt myself and be stubborn about it and play than sit there and watch the game. I don't want to watch
the detriment of the team. Yeah, me too, mate. Me too.
Absolutely, yeah. It's all about me, yeah. And I'm very different as a coach.
We're selfish.
I know. And then as a coach, I'm like, lads, pass the ball. Like, what's going on? Pass the ball. Our players getting taken off with half an hour to go. What are you moaning about? You played 60 minutes. If you were on the bench and you played 60 minutes, you'd be delighted. Relax.
Yeah.
Knowing full well what I'm like.
Same, mate. I'd criticise Nonto or someone for not passing it, going, I wouldn't have passed it there, would I? No.
I wouldn't have passed it, no. All the shots, all the 50-50s near the edge of the goal, I'm hitting all of them. All of them. Every one of them. And I'm not making eye contact with any other player afterwards.
Just running back in position, yeah.
Just back in the position, yeah. Looking up at the stand. Fergal's asking, what result would you want between Sunderland and Sheffield United tomorrow? Win, Sunday, or draw? I would love a draw in that game because they both drop points. What about you?
Draw, yeah. I don't. Sheffield United win, 3 points on us, they're above us. A draw above us, but we go back with a win. I just want, a draw, yeah. Because then they don't gain on us by 3 points, they gain on us by 1. So I don't want any of them gaining 3 points.
5 draws in a row. No, I think it's right. Sunderland 5 draws in a row as well at the moment. So they're not losing games, but they not having 1 in 5 very quickly becomes unbeaten in 6 when you win the next one. So. Can change very quickly. Steve, last season, Rutter lost the ball. Yeah, got that one right. Thanks, Steve. Lots saying we need another goalkeeper. I don't think the goalkeeper situation will even be looked at until the summer. So I wouldn't be looking for a goalkeeper change between now and then. It ain't going to happen. And, if you keep getting annoyed at something that you have zero control over and won't change, You're just annoying yourself. But I see it. I wasn't impressed with Melly in the first half yesterday, but I thought he made some big saves in the second half when needed, when he was needed, did his job. Agree. So it was good to see. And then, that we've covered that. There's loads of other comments have come in since. Apologies, folks. I won't get to all of them. We have to wrap it up now. But just a massive thank you as always for supporting the channel and watching on. Thanks to Lockie for joining me tonight. Lockie, have you got player ratings up, or what have we got coming out this week?
Yeah, did it at 4 a.m. last night when my weird sleep schedule. I couldn't sleep. I had to do something. I was like, what do I do at 4 a.m. with all this energy? I thought I'll make the video now and release it in the morning. So that's out on the channel. Yeah. Okay,
go check out Lockie's ratings from the game yesterday. I'll be back tomorrow morning for the Leeds news, and we'll have some form of a live stream tomorrow evening looking ahead to the game against Blackburn. Leeds' second home match away from home of the season, where we'll bring 7,500 fans to Ewood Park and pretty much take the place over for the game. So if you're traveling down, safe travels, enjoy yourself. And if you're not, I'll be around Friday evening for our preview and Saturday morning for the warm-up. You can check them out on the channel if you want to, and I'll talk to you then. Have a great rest of your evening. Talk to you soon. Bye.